in previous years, there was always one or two guys that they kind of do whatever they want to do. Frankly, I don't think we have to dig too far and deep. I'll just flat out say it. Jose Siri is absolutely one of them. And Randy Arozarena is another one of them.
2. And then the third one is the guy that has legal troubles, Wander Franco.
Yes, Wander Franco, correct.
That's the podium. That has to be the podium.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Rays, your daily podcast covering everything Tampa Bay Rays, from game analysis to player interviews. We've got you covered with all the latest news and insights. My name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano,
bringing you expert analysis and passionate discussions about our beloved Rays.
Whether you're a diehard fan who vividly remembers Longo's Game 162 just like us,
or you remember the early Devil Ray days of Wade Boggs and Carl Crawford,
we are here to break down every play, every trade, and every milestone. In fact, this will be our 7th season covering the Rays daily.
And it is spring training time, so go ahead, grab your favorite Rays gear, settle in, and subscribe to our Locked On Rays YouTube channel and other podcast platforms. You can also find us on X and Instagram at Locked On Rays.
Thank you for making Locked On Rays your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Very good. We do have some more on the spring training front and some interesting developments. I did come across a unique article from Mark Topkin, the longtime writer, of course, with the Tampa Bay Times, and some in-depth reporting, which is nice to see for a change. Not saying he's not a great reporter, but he really got a lot of sources, got a lot of insight, got a lot of information on this. The Rays' focus in 2025, among, improving the offense and winning more games, is better camaraderie and chemistry among the dudes that are part of the team. So there are now some new rules on uniforms and gear to push a team-first ideal. And as it was known last year, there were quite a few issues and dust-ups in the clubhouse. There was a lack of accountability, and the Rays are really trying to get ahead of it this year. And that starts with players. You're going to have to follow some new rules on what you can and can't wear. And there's some other things involved as well. Some activities that they're going to try to plan with players to do things outside of the actual game, like a bowling night or a crawfish boil, things like that. So really it's the human quotient is going to take a more important role, I think, this year.
Look, the Randy and Yanni thing was real. That can't be denied. So that's one. Number 2, in 2023, I put out this conspiracy theory on the lineup construction that after Randy and Wander had their dust up, very rarely did they ever go back to back on the lineup. I think with the massive exodus that happened last year, it was not only it was a fire sale. I know that we might disagree with our buddy Evan Klosky there. It was a fire sale, at least in my opinion, and I think we've talked about that and that you agree. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for me, it was a fire sale. Did it make sense? Sure, but it was a fire sale. But when this kind of article comes out, which, by the way, I agree with you, this article might be the best article that Mark Topkin has written this whole year. That's the kind of stuff that when Mark writes, you're like, this is really good, and this is really good. So if you guys haven't had a chance to read it because it's amazing stuff. Besides the fire sale, it seems like there was another intent. It wasn't just like, hey, let's get better pieces. Hey, we can get some controllable people. We can restock the farm. We see some good opportunities here to sell high on some folks. It was definitely also we got a clean culture here. Because I've said this many times with a manager. Every manager has a sell-by date. Their voice will grow stale. Joe Madden's, it grew stale by the end. Kevin Cash, his voice will grow stale. 1,000%. Maybe not now, but it will, because it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
But
I think something working in his favor, though, is the fact that the Rays churn their roster more than most or more than everybody. His voice may seem new and fresh and young to all the new players that are coming in and year out. But I get your point on that.
Sure. I think that maybe gives him a little bit more of an advantage than other managers. But not only managers have a sell-by date, but I think locker rooms and clubhouses themselves, they have a sell-by date. When guys know each other so well, there's also this level of comfortability that, it might seem like we don't have to do this all the time. We might start slacking. Hey, we go to the playoffs every year since 2019. We know what we're doing. And so there's like the intensity might not be there when you're with the same group of guys. I'm not saying by this, I don't mean that every year you should have a different sets of dudes, but it's something that you need to take care of. It's something that you need to watch out for. And it seems like the Rays have targeted that, hey, this is an issue.
Right.
And we need to do something about it, because if we don't, then this is going to elongate more than we wanted to. And so let's cut it off at the 2024 season. Let's start fresh with a lot of new faces. Because, Kevin, if you look at the opening day roster, how many guys from the 2024 opening day roster are not even here anymore?
Like half, essentially.
Basically.
Yeah. So in that article, there are some really good nuggets and quotes. One thing that really stuck out to me was what Yandy had to say, quote, "In previous years, there was always one or two guys that they kind of do whatever they want to do." And frankly, I don't think we have to dig too far and deep to figure out in recent memory who a couple of those guys were. I mean, I think we can, well, I'll just flat out say it. Jose Siri is absolutely one of them. And Randy Arozarena is another one of them.
Two. And then the third one is the guy that has legal troubles, Wander Franco.
Yes, Wander Franco, correct.
That's the podium. That has to be the podium. And if you have another podium, please put it down in the comments right now and hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you haven't. But really, though, that has to be the podium. It has to be Wander, Randy, and Siri in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
The guys that you know what? We can do whatever we want.
Right. Because we think we're so good, or we are so good that we have that leeway, which goes back to our conversation several weeks back with, would Kevin Cash allow Junior Caminero to do a home run trot in celebration like he did in the Dominican Republic? And I think it was putting the stamp down of, no, we are not going to tolerate or enable that nonsense, because we don't want to get into a situation where we have a Jose Siri 2.0 on a roster, no matter how good he is.
And then you're also talking about individualism. If you are letting that stuff go in, then that becomes more of the name on the back of the jersey, which was one of the points in the article, rather than the name on the front of the jersey. So and I know that the Rays are normally a really great clubhouse culture, and guys are left to their own devices to be their own persons and be their own personality. But like everything in life, there has to be a line. If you don't have a line, it's anarchy. And you have to have some control. So yes, be yourselves, but not to the point where, again, it becomes a negative, like it seems that it was in 2024, with possibly those three guys being the main culprits of maybe, I don't want to say rotting, because maybe that's a little bit too strong, but diluting what was a good clubhouse culture.
Yeah. And just to note on some of the guidelines and implementations, the most notable change will be a series of new rules concerning what players are required to wear and restricted from wearing on the field. Several players had said that they felt some teammates over the years took things too far with eye rolls and exhaustive glances in the clubhouse and dugout as evidence. The new rules include guidelines on what players have to wear, such as jerseys when throwing bullpen sessions, and only team-issued T-shirts while on the field. They also cover what they can't wear, such as accessories, cleats, and batting gloves from outside the palette of team colors. In other words, no more pink belts or fluorescent arm sleeves. So it's kind of funny that this is coming out, not to say it's, apples to apples, but you have a team like the Yankees who are being more loosey-goosey with their guidelines and restrictions, something like allowing beards within reason, while the Rays are reeling in their standards. So I think it's an interesting dichotomy to put at the fore there.
It's what I'm saying. You need lines or it's anarchy both ways. Yeah. You can't be too strict like the Yankees. It's 2025. Let grown men have beards, for bleep's sake.
Right.
Rays, let's put a little bit of rules here. Like let's have some sense of uniformity. For example, out of those three guys, none of those guys wore pink belts. That's Yandy. That's
Yandy. That's what's interesting about the whole
Yandy only thing. Yeah, it's very interesting. That was the only Yandy thing. But Kev, I do have a question for you because I'm not really getting this quote on the article. Maybe you can help me out. It says several players said they felt some teammates over the years took things too far, with eye rolls and exhaustive glances in the clubhouse and dugout as evidence. Is that what there is? Is he saying that players whilst in the clubhouse and players whilst in the dugout were looking at other guys on the field and like rolling their eyes at their attitude, at what they were doing? Is that what they mean?
Yes, I think that's what it is. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe some of the fans as well, but within the clubhouse, I think you had maybe some more, staunch players or more, I could see a Brandon Lau looking at X player, for example, and saying, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're definitely making it about you now instead of about the team. And I think that's ultimately what they're trying to accomplish with this representation.
Remember when Zach Eflin just became like the de facto veteran of the
team? Minute he was traded or acquired by the Rays, not traded, but signed by the Rays to a massive deal by Rays standards. It was like, you're a leader now. You're your grandfather, your papa.
Right. It just seems to me that when all these things were happening in 2023 and 2024, 2023, this was happening. But when you're winning 99 games, it doesn't matter that much. Yes. You guys are feeling good. But when winning covers a lot of stuff. But in 2024, definitely they came ahead. What I would give to have been a fly in the wall and seeing the veterans of that team that did not take into this whole anarchy system.
Mm-hmm.
What were they doing? Was Brandon Lau doing something? Was he saying something? I mean, I know Shane McClanahan wasn't, active.
Yeah, that's the thing, is when you're hurt or unavailable, you might not feel like you can speak your mind, so to speak.
I mean,
although Kevin Kiermaier was, hurt a third of the time or half the time, and I guess he was still able to be the voice of the organization to some extent.
Yeah, I think that carries when you're like there for a decade, and Brandon Lau is pretty close at that. So like,
yeah, he's getting there.
I would have really liked to see what was Brandon Lau doing. Another guy that I would be very interested in is like, what about Pete Fairbanks? Yeah. I mean, those two guys have been with the team since before the World Series appearance in 2020. And they're the guys that don't seem to be me first.
Right.
I think they're more team guys, Brandon Lau and Pete Fairbanks. So, gosh, I just would have really enjoyed to be a fly on the wall. And what were their reactions when this was actively happening? Were there discussions around the clubhouse about this? Was there any blow-ups? I mean, the article doesn't really go in depth about like any huge.
It's more generalities.
Although it's more general, yeah.
over the years, so to speak, between, Randy having an issue with, well, Randy and Wander, Yandy, Randy and Wander, and then, everybody with Wander. So it's kind of, run the gamut as far as that's concerned. But I would think that the players or individuals quoted in this article would be those guys that are more team oriented, from Josh Lowe to Drew Rasmussen to Yandy Diaz to Zach Littell to Brandon Lau to Pete Fairbanks. Those were the guys that were, accessed for this piece. So I would think they would be leading the charge with this measure. And again, I think it should work out where you have Brandon Lau, who's been around for so long. He can, present the guidelines to the English speaking players. Yandy Diaz, he's been around a long time. He can present the guidelines to the Spanish speaking players, and it hopefully should work out. And then Pete Fairbanks and, another starter can talk to the pitching staff.
And you know what? I mean, not because they're the highest salary, but also they've been the guys with the most time on the team.
And success as well.
In success, they're co-captains. Brandon Lau and Yandy Diaz are co-captains. I mean, a guy that has won a batting title and a guy that bops 39 home runs and an all-star, both all-star guys, you got to listen. And if they're still here, they weren't the problem. And I know, again, I understand that when they said no more accessories, such as no more pink belts, that's a direct pointing of the finger at Yandy. But also, I mean, it's a bad thing, but also a pretty good thing that Yandy's like, hey,
yeah. And maybe you get lost in it too. If everybody else is doing their own thing, why do you have to feel like you have to follow the quote unquote rules? I might as well be an individualist in that sense as well, to some extent.
100%. So I think this is going to be a really good change. I think we're going to see a little bit more unity. And like you said, just the rapport has to change in that clubhouse, and they're doing like team building activities. They're being a little bit more close together. You mentioned that there's like a barbecue or something as well. This should be a really good, piece of news for the fandom.
Yes, it should be. For the record, the 2024 opening day roster, the guys that are no longer on the team: Rene Pinto, maybe he was involved in some of the issues there. We'll never know. Isaac Paredes, Randy, Jose, Harold Ramirez, Ahmed Rosario, Austin Shinton, Zach Eflin, Aaron Savali, Tyler Alexander, Jason Adam, Colin Poche, Phil Meaton, Sean Armstrong, Chris Davensky. Am I missing anybody else? I think those are the guys that are no longer on the team from the opening day roster. So that is a big group.
It's a big group.
For sure. We have more to discuss, but first we have to tell the audience something very important, and that is FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. So right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel. They are the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Ulises, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
And it's related to the Rays offense. Okay. So the Rays scored just a measly 604 runs last year. In 2023, quite the difference. They had a franchise record 860. So I'm asking, can they somewhat split the difference in 2025 and provide around 700 runs across in 2025? So 700 divided by 162 is roughly 4.32 runs per game. They averaged 3.72 runs per game in 2024. Is that something that they can and will do this year?
I can answer half of that question. Can they do it? They can. Will they? Stay tuned, folks.
Yes.
Because it's so many, variables that have to go right. I understand it's spring training and we're all feeling incredibly hopeful and optimistic about it. And we should be. It's the time to be optimistic. So if you take injuries away, injury concerns, how can you not feel good about Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lau, Junior Caminero, Josh Lowe being on your top 4?
Yeah.
Take injuries away, take health away. Those are your top 4. That's pretty good. And then you look at Ha-Seong Kim mid-May. That's pretty good. Danny Jansen over Alex Jackson PAs plus some of Benny Rohrvets.
Right.
That's a win. Okay. So then what else do we have? We got Johnny DeLuca. Can he be the guy after the trade of Randy Rosarena? He did pretty good after the trade. Can he be that guy? Then you have Christopher Morel. Can he be a guy that pops 25 plus home runs? If he is, and if he's not too much of an inconvenience with the glove, you start to see how the lineup could be better than in 2024. So on paper, yes, they can definitely improve from 2024. But then you get to the end.
Yeah.
Will they stay healthy? Will they? And that's where the biggest question marks lie with most all of them, really.
Yeah. And plus Steinbrenner should help the field, the ballpark.
Should help.
Not just in a realistic sense, but probably a mental sense as well of like, yeah, we can probably get a runner in or bop one out here versus if we were playing in the Trop. I think ultimately it comes down to the Rays need to hit more home runs than they did last year. They need to get fewer strikeouts than they did last year. They need to get more runners that are at third base into home than they did last year. And for guys like, I don't know, Taylor Walls, maybe attempt more small ball opportunities, i.e. bunting, and just the smart base running overall. But I am in besides the top guys that we named and the health factor, I am positive on what Jonathan Aranda healthy full season opportunity can do. Curtis Mead bulking up to 20 pounds, bulking up 20 more pounds. In fact, I expect him to hit 900 this upcoming season. But the battle between Mead and Eloy, like that is going to be a solid competition, which it's a case of rising tide lifts all boats. And I think that, somebody out of that group, whoever gets the final roster spot, should be able to make some sort of dent with the active roster. Plus, we have the X factor maybe, or the ace in the hole in Chandler Simpson down the line. If for nothing else, then his contact ability and his base running, or just his base running. If you find a way to get him at first base by hook or by crook, you are ultimately going to score more runs. So that is an exciting prospect as well.
And you see how that top of the lineup could then be really exciting with Simpson, Kim, Yandy, Lau, Lowe, Caminero. Like now you're like, holy crap, 5 top 6 players are like you're really excited about. I mean, Chandler Simpson is going to be a spark plug, and
you would actually have depth in the lineup.
You have depth, and that's what went right in 2023. The auxiliary parts were also working at their best. Can that happen in 2024 and 2025? Let's hope so. Let's hope so, because in 2024, it wasn't even the auxiliary parts that didn't work. It was the main cast that did not work. Now, going back to what we were talking about, when you have a toxic working environment, and again, this goes through all industries, people.
Yes.
Whatever you are, if you're a worker, if you're a chef at a bakery, or if you're a plumber or an electrician, a project manager, or a public information officer, it does not matter. If your working environment is toxic, you're not going to get the best work out of people. Same thing at a clubhouse, man. People don't like each other. People don't hang out. People are rolling their eyes at their own teammates, talking behind their back, not hanging out with their wives, doing whatever they want. Yeah, you're not going to get the best out of all that group of people.
Yeah. And again, the first 6 games or first handful of games being at home against Colorado and Pittsburgh, you better not go 1-5 or 1-6 or whatever it is. You better start off on somewhat of a decent note. I do want to add this. Fangraphs projections for home runs for the Rays in 2025. They peg Yandy Diaz at 18, Brandon Lau at 25, Junior Caminero at 27, Josh Lowe at 18, Danny Jansen at 15, Chris Morel at 22, Aranda at 12, DeLuca at 15. I would take that. If those numbers end up replicating the projections, I think that's a good balance and a good starting point. Not to mention all the other guys that we haven't brought up, Eloy and Mead and Kim and so on. But I feel like that that could carry some water for you.
You're getting 15 home runs from Danny Jansen, and you're getting 22 from Morel. 15 from Johnny DeLuca. I don't know what they're thinking, but okay, I'll take it.
On you up.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Again, the power has to increase.
Yes.
But there's something other than power, which is something that Kevin Cash said in FanFest, and we showed here. Man on third has to score. Man on third has to score, and they're working on that. They've said they're working on that. Taylor Walsh has said that he's working on bunting, which is exactly what you should be doing with your skill set. You are a great base runner. You have a great eye. Put it down. Put it down and beat it.
And singles are okay with the runner on third. Sack flies are okay with the runner on third. Leaning into one, if the bases are loaded, that's okay too. Or taking your walk, whatever it is.
Pull up Brandon Geyer.
Yes.
Why not?
Wear that elbow sleeve and then stick your arm out. See what happens there.
Easy to say, though. I haven't taken a 98 on the tricep.
Yeah, me neither. And I don't know if I want to anytime
I
soon.
don't want to either.
Yeah. Put it in the comments. Will the Rays score more or fewer than 700 runs
also
this upcoming season?
Put it on the comments. How much would you cry if you get a 98-mile-an-hour fastball on the tricep?
Exactly. On that note, thank you for making the Locked On Rays podcast your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast with hosts Dominic Martino and Matthew On-Egg. MLB Fantasy Draft season is here. Be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.